If your child does one thing that is on the list of possible signs of autism, that probably doesn't mean anything at all. I've made a lot of videos about the signs of autism in young children, and there's a reason for that. A lot of people will see something that they don't think is typical or is age appropriate in their child, and they will wonder if that is a sign of autism. They'll go looking for answers. And so that's why I make those videos. I make those videos because I have 3 daughters who are autistic, and when our first daughter was diagnosed, I had very little idea outside of what I'd read in a few magazine articles and from what I'd read in a few parenting books about what autism was and what autism looked like. So most of what I knew when I started this journey was vague stereotypes, and I realized really early on when I actually started reading books about autism that there were a lot of signs that I missed along the way that would have helped me to understand Maggie better, that would have given us clues, that would have helped us communicate with her. And I felt like if we started learning more about autism earlier, that it would have made it easier for her and for us much sooner. Once we understood that there was something that was going on, it made life a lot easier for everyone in our house. So I make those videos because I feel like they could help parents who, like me, didn't know a lot about the signs of autism when starting out on their parenting journey. However, those videos tend to get a certain type of comment, and it is the same type of comment that I personally and that I know a lot of other parents of autistic children get when they are talking with friends, when they're at the playground, just throughout the lives of their children. That comment is the "oh, my kid does that" comment. And this comment isn't always bad, but it is often used in a really dismissive way towards parents of kids who are autistic. And it's a little trickier on the internet, but you can usually tell when it's being done in a dismissive way, and that is what I am talking about today. And so I guess this video is like a giant disclaimer. And the disclaimer is no, just because your child has one sign of autism doesn't mean that they are autistic. If your child does one thing that is on the list of possible signs of autism, that probably doesn't mean anything at all. If your child has one sign of something, of anything, that it's not very likely that that diagnosis applies to them, especially if the symptoms or sign of a diagnosis is usually a long list. There are a lot of things that are involved in an autism diagnosis. Just because your child has any single thing, or just because you hear a parent saying, "oh, my kid does this," and your kid does it too, it definitely does not mean that your child is also autistic. It just means that your child has something in common with this other kid. The one that people pick out in a lot of our videos is that Tessie slept a lot when she was tiny, that she slept 20 hours a day when she was 6 months old. And honestly, if your 6-month-old is really sleeping 20 hours a day, take her to the doctor and tell them that, if they truly are sleeping 20 hours a day. Because our doctor was alarmed, our neurologist was alarmed, and she ended up having central apnea. How much she was still sleeping when she was 20 months old was a red flag that something else was wrong. And that was completely apart from the fact that she was autistic. But one of the things that people often like to do is to cherry pick one thing and then say, well, my kid's neurotypical. Usually they don't say neurotypical. And they do this thing, and so are you saying they're autistic? And no, I'm not. That is exactly not what I'm doing. I'm giving you signs based on my own personal experience with my 3 daughters who have all been diagnosed as being autistic. Whatever you do with that information that I'm giving you is up to you. I am putting it out particularly for people who are wondering if their children may also be on the spectrum. The other thing that I think happens a lot is that, especially this is in actual real relationships that people have with other people, you'll have someone who has a child who is diagnosed with a developmental delay, and they'll be talking with a friend or family member or someone else, and there's definitely a tendency out there for people to say, oh, my kid does that, oh, my kid does that. I think sometimes it can be in an effort to relate, but it can also, I think, be done because there's this stigma against labels and diagnoses that some people have in their minds, and they're trying to make the other parent, the parent whose child has a diagnosis, feel like their child doesn't. Most of the parents that I know who have kids who have diagnoses actually don't take it as a compliment when you call their child's diagnosis into question. Usually it isn't easy to get a diagnosis, and usually, in my experience with other parents that I know, there's a sense of relief. It's not that you wanted this to happen. It's not that you wanted a diagnosis, but it's that so many things have happened up until this point that pointed to it that you finally have answers. You're finally able to get help. You're finally able to get resources. You're finally able to know what's going on and to be able to help your child. And so then when you have well-meaning people saying things like, oh, he looks normal, or oh, my kid does that too, and it's said in a way that's putting down your concerns as if they shouldn't exist, that is a common problem that parents of kids who have developmental disabilities do run into. They can make it hard to share with other parents who haven't experienced the same things, because it almost feels like you aren't being believed. I guess I kind of combined two vaguely related subjects that just felt related when I kept getting those comments. And it does kind of go back to even before diagnosis, when usually moms say, oh, this is going on and we're thinking about talking to the doctor, and then other parents say, oh, my kid did that, you don't need to worry. My kid did that and now he's totally caught up and he's 5. You don't need to worry. Tons of kids do that, and just sort of try to put off the possibility that developmental delays even are a thing when they are. And some kids do benefit from that extra help. Some kids do need speech. Some kids do need OT. Some kids do need physical therapy, and some kids do really benefit from it. Even if other kids who did that exact same thing go on and don't need that extra help and do catch up with their peers. And really, I think it's very hard to compare someone's memory from a decade ago or 5 years ago or even a year ago to what you're actually experiencing right now with your child. I do think it's always important to keep that in mind. That is it for today. If you like this video, we'd love it if you give it a thumbs up, and if you're interested in all things autism, we'd love it if you'd hit subscribe. And I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.